America once called itself the beacon of democracy, a nation that championed free speech, stood for the rule of law, and promised protection for the marginalized. The world looked to America as the gold standard, but over the course of a single decade, a question began to rise. First in whispers, then in a roar. Has that light begun to fade? This isn't a story about a single event. It's not a story about a single day. This is a story of power, a story of hubris, a story of a mindset where winning is everything and the rules are just obstacles. This isn't the story of a typical politician. It is the story of a man who came from the outside only to turn the political arena into his own personal stage. A businessman whose legacy is a mix of high-stakes success, bankruptcies, lawsuits, fraud, and allegations of sexual assault. A television star who knew exactly how to craft an image for the camera, and ultimately, a president. His name is Donald J. Trump. To some, he was the system breaker. To others, a dangerous mistake. To some, he was a truth teller. To others, he was the greatest threat to the truth itself. His name has become synonymous with countless allegations, countless lawsuits, countless controversies, from his treatment of women to his rhetoric regarding minorities, from accusations of overstepping the law to fears of undermining democracy. Ultimately, he is a name that has fractured a nation. Today, we examine the rise of this man, his decisions, his rhetoric, the impact of his policies. We will witness how, in the pursuit of power, one man repeatedly tested the limits of the law, the limits of morality, and the limits of humanity. This is not political propaganda. This is not a personal attack. This is a documentary based on the records, in the light of court rulings, driven by the hard questions of history. Because one day, history will ask, when power rises above morality, what happens to democracy? Let's not delay any further. Let's begin from the beginning. Childhood, family, and the psychology of power, an expanded chapter. The years spent at the New York Military Academy did not just expose Donald Trump to discipline, they introduced him to a new form of power. Here, respect was earned not by being calm, but by being tough. Here, popularity came not from empathy, but from influence. And within this environment, Donald Trump slowly learned how fear, confidence, and speaking loudly could become a weapon. In the memories of his classmates, Trump was both confident and arrogant. He always tried to set himself apart. Whether on the playing field or in the classroom, he wanted all eyes on him. And if anyone challenged his authority, the response was immediate and harsh. It was during this time that another crucial trait began to form, a reluctance to admit mistakes. After any conflict, Trump rarely blamed himself. Instead, fault was placed on circumstances, on other people, or on unfair treatment. This mindset would later become a permanent shadow throughout his life. After completing the academy, Donald Trump entered university life. He studied economics and business, but even here, his interest lay less in textbooks and more in the practical exercise of power. He knew his future was already turning in a specific direction. That path had been prepared by his father, Fred Trump. His father believed in him, but that belief came with strict expectations. To him, Donald Trump was not just a son. He was an heir, someone who would carry not only wealth, but a name, influence, and authority. This pressure made Donald Trump even more rigid. The atmosphere inside the family also played a critical role in shaping this mindset. In the Trump household, emotional expression was rarely encouraged. Love was demonstrated through success, and failure was seen as a sign of weakness. For someone raised in such an environment, empathy did not become the language. Success did. This is why, to Donald Trump, power was never a responsibility. Power was an identity, a shield behind which all questions could be deflected. These early years of childhood and adolescence leave behind a fundamental question. Would Donald Trump have become the same person if he had grown up in a different environment? If the taste of power had not touched his tongue at such a young age? History does not answer this question, but the outcome stands before us. Because it was in this chapter that a seed was planted, a seed of mindset, that later transformed into aggressive decisions in the world of business. That, in politics, became the language of division, and that ultimately gave birth to fear, anger, and uncertainty within a nation. This chapter does not end here, because from this point begins another story. The story of turning power into business. The story of turning a name into a brand. And behind that brand, the story of deciding the value of law, morality, and human lives. And the world of Donald Trump. Donald Trump, who called himself a self-made billionaire, a businessman who carved his name into New York's skyscrapers, Atlantic City's casinos, and the world of luxury hotels. But behind this success lay controversy, lawsuits, and a business strategy built on an irregular path. One rise of the empire. Trump's real estate empire began with family support. His father, Fred Trump, was already a well-known name in New York real estate. Trump thought big, not just buildings, but selling each project as a brand. But this path was far from obstacle-free. 2. Financial turbulence. During the 1980s and 1990s, Trump's casinos and hotels declared bankruptcy one after another. Contractors alleged, even after completing their work, they were not paid. Court records show Trump's business strategies were bold, but often controversial. Instead of compensating them, he placed himself in front of the media, turning failed businesses into brand stories. And Trump knew how to do that well. 3. Tax and asset controversies. Another major controversy surrounding Trump was taxes and assets. To banks and investors, he presented inflated asset values. But to the government, he claimed many of those assets were worth less. In other words, at the same time, he increased asset values and reduced taxes. Journalists and investigators identified this strategy as 4. Trump University controversy. Trump University, an institution open to teach business education, became the center of major controversy. Students alleged they did not receive the training they were promised. The court later declared it a fraudulent project, and Trump was ordered to pay financial settlements. 5. Aggressive persona in business. Trump's business was never just about money. It was a show where his personality was the main product. He took risks, made bold decisions, and used media presence to strengthen his brand. The same strategy later helped him gain popularity in politics. Trump's business journey, filled with rise and fall, controversy, lawsuits, and calculated tactics. He presented himself as a self-made billionaire, but in reality, his business path was complex, controversial, and often questioned. And in this way, this chapter laid the foundation for his entry into politics and prepared him for the pursuit of power.
Next, let us move to what many consider Donald Trump's next and biggest mistake: the injustice and oppression directed at Muslims. During the 2016 presidential campaign, Donald Trump made a statement that sparked nationwide controversy. He said, "Muslim ban." This was not an ordinary political remark. That statement later turned into real policy, not just a campaign rally slogan or a media performance, but something that directly affected the lives and safety of millions. Travel ban. The Trump administration implemented a travel ban in early 2017. It primarily targeted citizens from several Muslim-majority countries. The administration claimed it was meant to reduce security risks. Critics, however, argued this was religious discrimination and directly targeted the Muslim community. Multiple lawsuits were filed against the ban in various courts. Judges struck down or limited the policy at different stages, demonstrating that the administration's actions were directly linked to issues of religious freedom. Refugee restrictions. Strict limitations were also imposed on refugee admissions. Refugees from many Muslim countries, especially Syria, Iraq, and Iran, faced severe restrictions on visas and asylum approvals. Human rights organizations described these policies as religion-based discrimination. The impact was felt by millions of families seeking safety from war, persecution, or genocide. This was not merely an administrative decision. It directly affected human lives, pushing against the boundaries of education, healthcare, and social security. Rise in hate crimes. The impact of these policies and statements was not confined to paper. According to reports, Trump's anti-Muslim rhetoric and policies contributed to an increase in hate crimes. Violence, fear, and social division intensified. Students, community leaders, and religious organizations documented and reported these changes. This situation created an environment of social and political pressure where members of the Muslim community felt unsafe in their daily lives. Critics and supporters. Critics argue these policies granted state legitimacy to religious hatred. Government policy, they say, was crafted to directly target a specific religion. Supporters, on the other hand, claim these were decisions made in the name of security and national protection. This debate created deep divisions across the country. This controversy was not just political. It raised a moral and humanitarian question. How far can a state go in the name of security? And is religion-based discrimination acceptable under that justification? Social and political impact. The effects of these policies were felt at every level, in the lives of Muslim communities, educational institutions, social relationships, and workplaces. Many were denied visas, jobs, or educational opportunities. This was not just a policy, it became a journalistic, social, and political test. Across the nation, anti-Muslim sentiment and social division increased. Through administrative policies and legal enforcement, Trump directly influenced the lives of millions. Travel bans, refugee restrictions, and rising hate crimes left deep scars on Muslim communities. Critics say this legitimized religious hatred at the state level. Supporters argue it was necessary for national security. And this debate leaves us with a final question. Where is the boundary between power, security, and secularism?
Let us move next to the allegations of sexual misconduct and accusations against women. Multiple women at different times have accused Donald Trump of sexual misconduct, immoral behavior, and harassment. These allegations came from different periods, some earlier, some later, and from different places. But one thing remains consistent. The nature of the accusations was strikingly similar. As women, their personal boundaries were violated, and influence and power were used to exert control over them. In recent times, February 2026, new information about Donald Trump has gone viral on the internet following the leak of new confidential documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. The main reason behind this viral spread: recently, the US Department of Justice released nearly 3 million pages of Epstein-related files and documents. Trump's name appears hundreds of times within them. Old allegations, new exposure. The documents include a list of past sexual abuse allegations previously raised against Trump. One woman, identified under the pseudonym Jane Doe, alleged that during the 1990s, when she was only 13 years old, Trump sexually assaulted her. However, the FBI has stated that these allegations remain unverified. Connection with Epstein. The documents also reveal a long-standing acquaintance between Trump and Epstein, although Trump has repeatedly claimed that their relationship ended long ago. Photos and videos. The released files contain images of many Epstein victims, including their faces, which has sparked widespread controversy. Some documents reference text messages between Steve Bannon, Trump's former advisor, and Epstein. However, no video has been released showing Trump directly committing any sexual crime. It is also stated that most videos circulating online claiming to be Trump videos are actually old interviews or edited clips. Major past legal cases. As these viral revelations spread, many people are also revisiting Trump's earlier major legal cases. 1. E. Jean Carroll case. In 2023 and 2024, courts found Trump liable for sexual abuse and defamation, ordering him to pay nearly $88 million in damages. Trump is currently appealing the verdict. 2. Stormy Daniels case. Trump was convicted in the hush money case involving payments made to adult film actress Stormy Daniels to keep her silent. This case continues to be debated publicly. Whether all current viral claims are entirely true or false remains unclear. 4. Access Hollywood tape. A recording made in 2005, known as the Access Hollywood tape, was released in 2016. In the video, Trump and the hosts engage in crude and sexually inappropriate discussions about women. The public was shocked because the remarks were explicit, unfiltered, and raised serious questions about his character. Critics argue that the tape clearly exposes Trump's attitude towards women. Even after its release, Trump claimed, "These were private jokes." This incident became the first major challenge to his political career. Public debate intensified, and the divide between criticism and support became more entrenched. Trump has consistently denied all allegations, stating, "All lies, political conspiracy." This is not just a personal matter. It raises broader questions for society. How far powerful individuals can cross boundaries with women, and how effectively legal systems can restrain such power. 5. Other women's allegations. The accusations are not limited to courtroom cases. Many women at different times have spoken out about attempts to influence or pressure them using social, political, or business power. Many came forward voluntarily, ignoring fear, mental pressure, and social judgment. Their testimonies show powerful positions can sometimes enable the violation of personal boundaries. 4. Trump's responses and denials. Trump's response has been consistent, a complete denial of all allegations. His claim, "All lies, political conspiracy." But court records, testimonies, journalistic investigations, and jury decisions have made this issue far more complex and far more significant. This demonstrates that the issue is not merely a personal attack. It is legally, socially, and politically significant. Historians argue that understanding how power and influence can lead to violations of personal boundaries is critically important. 6. Broader social context. Later news coverage showed that these allegations are not merely personal. They reflect society as a whole. When women speak out against powerful figures, their courage, risks, and social obstacles become visible. This chapter teaches us that violations of personal boundaries under the grip of power and influence are complex, sensitive, and deeply relevant to our time. These are not single incidents. They represent a pattern, a question, and a warning that power and influence can sometimes open the door to boundary violations. Trump has denied all allegations, but court records, jury verdicts, and ongoing journalistic investigations have made this issue more complex and more significant. And through this chapter, history asks one final question: where is the boundary between power and personal influence?
Democracy under pressure. 2020 election and January 6th. November 2020. Vote counting is underway across the United States. Donald Trump, the sitting president of 4 years, loses the election. Joe Biden wins. This is the outcome of a standard democratic process. But Trump's reaction does not allow it to remain ordinary. He refuses to accept defeat. Instead of conceding, Trump claims the election was stolen. This statement is not just a sentence. It creates an atmosphere of doubt, confusion, and tension. His campaign team, social media platforms, and supporters spread this claim nationwide. The public becomes confused. a conflict emerges between belief and truth. Trump and his supporters raise multiple false allegations against the election results: ballot fraud, event manipulation, and systemic corruption. No credible evidence is ever found to support these claims, yet thousands of people begin to believe them. The very foundation of democracy, the people's vote, slowly comes under question. Court rejections. Trump's legal team files nearly 60 lawsuits across different states. The courts reject them one by one. Judges state clearly there is no sufficient evidence, legal procedures were followed. These dismissals demonstrate the proof of a fair and transparent vote count is strong. Still, Trump's supporters refuse to accept the outcome. January 6th, Capitol attack. On January 6, 2021, a terrifying event unfolds. Trump supporters storm the U.S. Capitol. The goal? To pressure the certification of the election results. Lives are lost, police officers are injured, and the safety of members of Congress is placed at risk. Many historians describe this moment as one of the darkest days in American democracy. Social and political impact. The impact of this event does not remain confined to the Capitol. The entire nation becomes divided. Doubts over electoral integrity, declining trust in democratic institutions and processes, social and political tensions escalate. This chapter shows how the clash between personal power and public trust can directly threaten democracy. Taken together, it becomes a profound test for American democracy. History will remember this chapter. When power rises above the will of the people, how fragile democracy can truly become. Trump's legacy and the question of history. Donald Trump, a man remembered not only for his personality, but as a reflection of modern America's political, social, and cultural tensions. Yet the question remains, was he merely a controversial leader or the symbol of a deeper systemic failure? These moments reveal the continuity of his life and his methods of action. Business life, success, bankruptcies, controversy. Childhood and youth, a psychology of power, ego, dominance. Political life, inflammatory remarks, false claims, policies, and electoral disruption. Social impact, the Muslim travel ban, allegations against women, social division. Each moment shows how power can rise above morality. Analyzing these moments makes one thing clear. Trump is not just an individual. He is a reflection of circumstances shaped by criticism, controversy, and social tension. The law may deliver final verdicts, cases, investigations, and trials may conclude, but history never rushes. It teaches us that questions about the use of power, morality, and the future of democracy take time to answer. One question remains unmistakable. When power rises above morality, what becomes of democracy? This question is not only about Trump. It challenges our society, our institutions, and our future. Trump's actions and policies divided the nation in two. Trust in electoral integrity, democratic institutions, and public will came under threat. The Muslim travel ban, allegations against women, and the January 6th Capitol attack. Each event left a deep mark on the country's political and social structure. Trump's legacy, therefore, is not just the story of one man. It is the test of a nation. Donald Trump, a person, a leader, and a symbol. His legacy, controversies, and influence have left a lasting imprint on American history. Some answers have been found, many questions remain. But one truth is certain. History teaches us that balance between power and morality is never established quickly. That balance will determine the future of democracy, the direction of our society, and will teach the world how a nation's leader can remain aligned with its people, its principles, and its humanity. Donald Trump, a leader, a businessman, a controversial figure. His life and methods have shown us that power can sometimes rise above morality, and how deeply a nation's future can be tested. Controversy, lawsuits, criticism, and support together form a complex legacy that will be remembered for a long time in history. The question before us remains: how can the balance between power, morality, and democracy be preserved? This documentary exists for that question, to invite the audience to think, analyze, and confront history.